Hello, and welcome to Two Pews in a Pod. Join us as we explore faith in a modern world at Evangelical Lutheran Church in Frederick, Maryland. Now, here is your host, Pastor Paul Baglios.
I'm Paul Baglios.
And I'm Megan Wyatt.
And we are pleased to welcome all of you who are listening and or watching this podcast to part 2 in a 2-episode series regarding our recent youth service trip to Boston. We are joined here by a number of the young members of this congregation who participated in that trip, and they will introduce themselves once again.
Hi, my name is Trey.
I'm Jules.
I'm Claire.
I'm Logan.
I'm Caleb.
I'm John.
And I'm Megan. And you guys have never said your names faster before in the history of names. The last time we met for our podcast prior to our trip, one of the things we had talked about was what your expectations were, what you were hoping to learn or experience. And so I think it might be a fun way to start our conversation is to hear from you all about how did your expectations match the experience that you had? Or maybe it was different, and in what ways? And you can just jump in. It doesn't have to be in order.
Well, my experience matched my expectations with this trip by, because I knew we were gonna provide for the community a lot, and so I just felt like it was like a succeeded, like a
success,
in community,
yeah. So your expectation to serve did match.
That was well said. Now, if Logan speaks, we'll all laugh at him
while he's
trying to talk. Alright, I feel like whatever I was expecting was matched. I mean, I knew we went into it thinking that we were going to serve the community, and I feel like that we did that in a way that represented what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caleb.
Nice.
It's cool.
I wanted to be able to serve another community and learn about the issues that they were having, and I feel like we really we served in multiple different ways, like weeding and the food pantry and being able to give to shelters, and we learned a lot about what was going on in the community.
Yeah, I went into it I was excited to help with different organizations, but I went in really excited to spend more time with my church group and have a bonding experience, and I would definitely say that happened.
Well, for me, I was really excited to share my gifts and talents with the rest of the world to make the world a better place.
I think it matched a lot of my expectations. I was expecting to do a lot of service, and we definitely got to do a lot of that.
Yeah. That's good.
I know from the things that I heard many of you talking about this past Sunday and from the photographs that I saw, that the service that you did was really significant service. These weren't just play acting activities that didn't matter. You put your own hearts and your hands and your legs and your muscles to the work going on in various projects and agencies in Boston to serve the people of the community. You mentioned some of that. What was the favorite piece of service for each of you that you got to participate in?
Oh, I would say it was making tie-dye shirts because I've always wanted to use my talents with making beautiful art and work and giving back to the world and showing them.
I really enjoyed helping at the food pantry. It was it was really neat to see the different volunteers, because there were so many volunteers that were there constantly, but only was it 2 of them were paid?
Yeah.
So it was really neat to see all the people that really helped out with the food pantry.
My favorite was also the food pantry because it really felt like I was in the community and being able to personally help other people.
Yeah, like make a difference, because we had two different pantry experiences. One, we were putting together meal kits that were dropped off and delivered at people's homes, and then the other group was more in face to face and handing out and helping individuals shop and do their shopping. And so those two different experiences were really different and gave us different views on what it means to serve. And the word accompaniment was the one that they kept that we kept bringing up in the week, that it's not just coming in and helping, but walking alongside, not just the volunteers, but the individuals that we're helping.
And I enjoyed at the food pantry because with our group we were packaging them too, but it was also they set it up like a grocery store. So the people who register, they have no questions asked. You can just register and you can like get food.
Yeah.
So they set up like a grocery store where you can walk through and pick what you want, but there's like a limit to how much. But it was just nice seeing the work I put into be provided to seeing them pick up what I helped with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was probably the labyrinth. I mean, just seeing the transformation that we were able to do in a short amount of time. And I was also just going to say that I'm kind of jealous of the other food pantry because it seemed like more active than just packaging bread, which is still a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, just seemed more like interactive.
Yes.
With like the grocery store, the way that it was described.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed getting to do the tie-dye shirts because making tie-dye shirts is fun, but we also got to like deliver them to the shelter that they were helping out.
Yeah.
And doing that and getting to see like what they were doing there, and then also hearing about like what they did with the shirts and all the other stuff they get was really cool.
Do you remember what they did with the shirts?
They just helped hand them out to people in their shelter.
Yeah, so instead of plain white shirts, you got, something colorful and bright. Yeah.
Well, another question occurs to me. One might say, perhaps it's an arresting question, John. How many of you had previously been to Boston?
Not me.
So this was your first time to be in Boston. I'm wondering, what did you see in Boston that is helping you see Frederick in new ways?
I would say the way that the city was built up around like the original architect from like the 1700s and 1800s. Just the way how some of those buildings were still preserved and like just the general layout you could still see.
Yeah, it really did feel like there were those pieces of that really old city with the new around it, right? But they were still holding on to that.
For me, it was like the churches that we saw, like was it Paul Revere's church, and then the other church that we saw. It showed me like the significance of old churches and churches in general, but like really how cities keep up the churches and how they're still like a big part of their city.
Well, what I saw is that how much time has passed over the city's founding and how all of these new buildings have come around. These buildings have been here for more than a century.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice seeing how the connection, how their church was kind of similar to ours because they also do, and I'm sure many other churches do VBS. But it was just cool seeing how they do it.
Yeah, that it was another historic church that's still alive and well, right? Yeah, and I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't the old Line Church. Oh gosh, I can't remember the one that they had built.
That was what I was about to
Their
say.
Sunday school program. They had said to us, we have the oldest Sunday school program in the country, and I said false. And then they described how it had grown so much that they actually built a new sanctuary on top of the old to make way. And I thought that was just a really cool illustration, for how churches change and adapt and are the centers of community. Yeah, that was really interesting.
It was also really cool getting to see, like, going through the city. most of the buildings were like massive. And then there were like these older buildings that were just like 2 stories tall, and it was always like really surprising seeing them.
Yeah.
Contrasting to like these giant like skyscrapers and stuff. And there's just like an old 2-story brick building right next to them.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed like when we were in Boston, there were so many buildings and they were all really kept well. So like it was really neat to see even like the oldest buildings still in really
In
nice
really good
shape.
shape. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was really surprised at probably the immense preservation work that it probably took to restore all these buildings that have probably gone run down over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there was one thing that you wish all the people of Evangelical Lutheran Church had seen with you or heard with you or felt with you, what would that be?
Probably feeling the impact of even the littlest bit of work that we did. Like, I know for me, I unpacked a lot of bread.
Yes, we did.
And we just had to rebag it, and even though it seemed repetitive, you could tell that that bread was going to be used for
that day probably.
something important.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it would be how like much people appreciated like the food pantries that were there. Like there's a couple people who like really they asked about like the limits and everything, and they wanted to make sure that everyone else was getting things even while they still needed things. So definitely how appreciative they were of it.
Another thing, like, I know at the food pantry I was at, there was a woman who was there who was helping give, like, box up food, and then whenever she was leaving, she got a box. So I felt like that even if they didn't have as much as they needed, they would still try and help and give back in some way.
Yeah, there's something really beautiful about that, right? For me, it's like the bottled joy that we get when we serve together as a group, right? We were out in 100-degree heat in the middle of a field, completely dirty and itchy, and yet watching you all and working beside you to pull weeds, which is hard labor, and we didn't stop laughing and singing and having the best time, and that I wish I could bottle that up, and just give that to everybody, the sense of like what it feels like when you like work with a goal with other people.
Trey, sorry, go ahead.
Well, what I learned that I can give back to Evangelical is that if you have a talent for something and you know you can help the world with it, help the world. Because even though you may have a little impact, it could make a huge ripple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had read that scripture from James, remember, that said that, the importance of acting, right? Not just talking. I love that, Trey.
And Trey, it was you or Jules who had mentioned looking forward to bonding with the group. That happened for you?
Yeah, like during the time we spent like on the farm, many hours and it was a hot day. And just like the time we spent in the house too, because like I wouldn't say there was a moment we weren't spending time together other than when we were sleeping.
Yeah.
We were sleeping.
And the minute we climbed in the van, right? That was the beginning of our time together. Yeah. Lots of time in the car. We dealt with traffic, and I tell you, they were the best travelers ever. I think it was like an hour and a half to get into the city most days, and then especially when I would miss an exit.
I don't know what we would have done without your concerts.
I know. Our concerts with me and Mr. Carl.
It didn't even really feel like, what was it, like 8-9 hours?
Yeah.
It felt more like 6.
I know. It was your own personal Eras tour.
I'm curious to know, so your friends who are not part of Evangelical Lutheran Church, perhaps not part of a religious community at all, are you able to speak with them about the experience you had? Are they interested? What do they ask? What what do they comment? What do you share with them?
Well, my best friend who actually came on the trip with us, I used to talk to her about a lot of my experiences with church and everything, and she was like, she has her own church with her family, but she has come to our church a couple times, and she found an interest in what we do and the community that we have here.
I was talking to one of my good friends all throughout Boston and afterwards, and she asked me how it was, and she was so interested in what the different things we did as a group, and she thought it was really cool that we could all do things like that together.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot of friends, but the ones that I do have, I can tell them that if you ever visit Boston and you go to a charity work or any type of job that has to do with charity, help as best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Give it your hardest.
How about you guys? Did you share your experience with anybody when you got home?
I told my mom and my siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My sister was jealous. She couldn't.
Yeah,
she
my
was a little
siblings-
upset.
Yeah.
My sister
younger
was like,
siblings.
"It's okay, I get to go next year." So she
Yeah. They're
And then
growing
Blake and
up,
Drake,
though, again, it happens.
Blake and
after
Drake.
that, I don't know.
Caleb, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say what John said. I told my family, and because they were interested in knowing. Because my family, my dad went to Boston before, and but he went a long little while ago.
Okay.
So he just wanted to see he just wanted to know if it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I told him it's definitely different than with a lot of aspects.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your sister was able to come and visit us because she's in Providence,
Yeah.
and
She
towards
was-
Boston for work, for college and school. So it was really special to see her and have her there. What did you guys think about having young adult mentors with us? Because this was the first time we had done that as a new
They were really
new
fun.
thing. Really, really fun.
Yeah, especially when we come back to the house and play games and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. They had a lot more energy than the adults. I know our Nerf battles were pretty intense there. Yeah.
So it's Morgan and Jack.
Morgan and Jack,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what I would say about Morgan and Jack is that they're definitely really nice and great people, and the way Morgan worked on Tuesday when we were at the fields, man, I have a lot of respect for that. That was hard work, and she was working her best.
Is there anything else any of you would like to share while we have a moment or so left?
Any lasting thoughts? Anything you hated? I'd love to know what you hated. I have something.
It was really freezing in the van.
It was freezing in the van because Carl and I get hot.
I thought the van felt nice.
I hated macaroni and cheese on day 3. Was that
Actually,
day 3? That was
Logan
terrible.
tried
He
so
tried.
hard.
There was no
to fix
salvaging that.
So hard.
Yeah.
So.
There were eggs in it. There was no going back.
There was no going back.
There was eggs in it.
eggs, flour.
There was something
Yeah,
hard in that. I
Boston
bet
was
in
really-
Something hard.
There was something hard.
It was
And the
probably just
chicken tasted
pasta.
like nothing.
Mac and cheese. I've never heard of that.
I don't know.
Well, and I know hearing the stories that you were telling on Sunday that you shared affirmations with one another
Those are so
on your behalf, and I'll add my own voice to yours. I want to express affirmation and appreciation to Megan for her magnificent leadership, and to say to all of you what you did for those days and what you do on many other days and in many other places in your lives is really exactly what the apostles were sent out to do. And you've done it well and with impact.
Absolutely.
Thank you for making the time again to be seated here around this table to record an episode of this podcast. Thank you to those of you who have watched or listened. I am Paul Baglios.
I am Trey.
I'm Jules.
I'm Claire.
I'm Logan.
I'm Caleb.
I'm John.
And I'm Megan Wyatt. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you next time.
This has been Two Pews in a Pod, a podcast hosted by the lead pastor of Evangelical Lutheran Church in Frederick, Maryland. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.